Hey everybody, this is Bam Neely, and you're watching the WZWA Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WZWA Network podcast here. I am your host with the most on the West Coast, California in Fury. It is so good to be with you here tonight. And I need to first and foremost introduce my co-host here, Jack Wallace. Jack, how are you going this evening, my friend?
I'm a coffee deep. It's 11 p.m. I'm excited. I'm buzzing, so let's get to it.
Yeah, man, I'm buzzing too. I've got myself a nice cold beer, and I am ready. I am ready to talk to this guy right here. I am so excited to find out a little bit about his journey in professional wrestling and everything that happened afterward. He is the one and only former WWECW superstar, member of La Familia. He is the one and only Bam Neely. Bam, how are you going tonight?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Yeah, good, bro. Thank you for being with us here today. We're really excited to do a little dive into your past in professional wrestling. I know it's a long time ago for you now, but a little trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
First question we always ask everyone, Bam. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. But we like to take it all the way to the beginning and ask you, when you were young and when did you or how did you first become a fan of wrestling?
I guess I've always been a fan of wrestling. I remember when I was real young, WrestleMania 3 with Andre and Hogan. That kind of got me kick-started. A couple of my friends, we'd always like suplex each other in the front yard, and I think I used to beat up my stepsisters growing up. So if I could get a couple drop kicks in on them before they punched me in the private parts, I would take advantage of it.
Reminds me a lot of me and my sister. I used to try and lock the figure 4 leg lock on her anytime I could.
Anytime I could clothesline those two girls.
I was talking to your friend Mike Miranda, and he mentioned that you had quite the career in football. Could you tell us a little bit about your past and what you achieved in that sport?
I played some football. It's one of those things where we had a little bit of a past in football. I can't really get too much into it because I have there's a couple things that I really don't like to talk about. There was a couple incidents that I just am not a fan of, but I definitely will talk about the wrestling business. Okay. My past is scattered with a lot of bad things, but wrestling definitely will be something that we can talk about.
Okay, that's cool, bro. Sure, I wanted to know how you got into pro wrestling, and you were trained by your uncle, I believe.
No, that's a misconception.
Okay.
My uncle did not train me.
Okay.
A guy named Eddie Shark, he was considered a trainer of champions. He trained guys like the Road Warriors, Rick Rude, Jesse Ventura, the governor of Minneapolis. And so my uncle did not train me. It's funny, people always ask me, so your uncle trained you? No, my uncle was like a mentor to me, but he was never the one that trained me. I was kind of like the last person that Eddie Sharkey kind of got in the ring with. And then a guy named Charlie Thunderblood Norris kind of broke me into the business. But the one that really kind of taught me a lot in the wrestling business was a guy named Lenny Lane.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Lenny Lane was I owe a lot to Lenny. Lenny was a good guy. He always taught me the way of the business in the early time in my career. When I was kind of breaking in, in the late 90s and stuff.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we've had Lenny on the show, and he's a hell of a guy. And yeah, I guess that misinformation came from your Wikipedia article. So I have an account on there. I will edit that, and I will set the story straight.
It's
It was
fun,
Eddie Sharkey that
the Wiki Police.
Eddie Sharkey is the one that actually trained me.
Okay.
And I was kind of the last person that Eddie actually.
Do you get technical difficulty?
Actually really good trained, so he tries. Yeah.
Hang on.
Everything all right
the
there,
connection
Jack?
got lost there. I don't know if that's my connection.
It cut out for a second there.
You okay?
Yeah, it just you froze for a second there, and now you're back. So I don't know.
Oh, it wasn't my connection. All right, cool.
Anyway, it might have been, but everything's okay now. Over to you, Jack.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll get there. So obviously, you weren't trained by your uncle Richard Martin, but you did actually wrestle alongside him as the Hellraisers, as Hellraiser Guts,
Yes,
and he was Hellraiser Blood. So how was that experience for you? I'm sure you would have learned so much from him, and as well as having your uncle around, that would have been great, sort of breaking into the business with him.
Yeah, he was. He had actually wrestled probably about 8-9 years before me.
Right.
He was actually he wrestled with his brother, and then his brother gave up the business to raise a family and have his life. And my uncle, after I got out of football, my uncle was like, "What do you want to do in life? Do you want to wrestle?" And I was like, "Man, I don't want to be no wrestler." I watched you wrestle, and to me, I was like, I like wrestling. I love watching it, but do I want to get beat up every day?
Yeah.
But one of my best friends, a guy named Steve, he got me into it. And when I got back from college, he was like, "We need to do this. We need to be wrestlers." And I was like, "Oh man, do I really want to be a wrestler?" But he talked me into it. And so my uncle got a hold of Eddie, and Eddie trained me. And then after that, my uncle kind of mentored me throughout the first, early part of my career. Without my uncle, I think I would have been taken advantage of, but he was always the one that was always looking out for me, and my buddy Steve too. He always looked out for Steve as well. So I really owe a lot to him.
Awesome, man. That's cool. A sweet little tidbit I actually noticed when we were researching your career is you had a match against Jerry Lynn on the 9th of June 2000 for ECW, and then again the next day in Pittsburgh against Julio De Niro. How was that experience at ECW for you? I mean, I had no idea you actually wrestled in the original ECW, so that's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a little backstory to that. Actually, Jerry Lynn was actually in my wedding to my first wife. I actually lived with Jerry for about 2 years. Jerry's a fantastic guy. I mean, I don't know anybody that could say anything bad about Jerry Lynn. He is a great guy. I owe a lot to Jerry. Jerry's the one that taught me how to be a professional in the professional wrestling business, which is a hard thing to do in the beginning, because you're like so in love. Once you get in the business, at first I was like, man, I don't want to be a wrestler. Wrestler's not cool. But once you're in, you are like in, and you love it. And I loved it. I lived every minute of it. And Jerry was one of those people that taught me how to become a professional wrestler, not just a wrestler, a professional wrestler. And when I'm talking about like, don't sell yourself short when it comes to the way you work out, the way you train, the way you hold yourself as a professional. Don't sell yourself out when it comes to getting paid. That was one of the things Jerry really taught me. If you have a price, stick to your price and make sure that people will pay you for that.
That's right, man. So how was the sort of experience working in front of that ECW crowd? They're a very, very critical crowd.
Oh my gosh. The first time, it was great. I think, God, I think the first time I wrestled, the first match I had was actually against my buddy Steve. My buddy Steve actually was the first person we wrestled, like the first or second match on a house show, and it was great. And then my friend Steve, needless to say, did not stay in the company very long because he likes to party, if you know what I mean. He liked to have a good time, and kind of rubbed a couple people the wrong way. So they told him that he was no longer wanted there. And I stayed on for a few more months, and I had a great time until pretty much they told me that they were closing down and moving on. And then, of course, WWE bought them. Yeah, it was a great time. Great time.
So you were sort of you're actually on the way to actually being on their roster. If they wouldn't have closed down, man, so you would have been there through 2001 and beyond.
They would have, I would have been there actually at the end. At the end there, I was there all the way until the end.
Yeah.
Kid Cash, I wrestled a couple times. I wrestled Nova, and that's kind of like when Nova was in WWE. That's kind of how I got my foot in the door in WWE when Nova was there. Simon Dean, of course, in WWE. His name in WWE, Simon Dean. So that's kind of, but Dreamer really liked me. He really liked me in the original ECW. He really liked me when I was in WWE. He kind of really pushed for me because at the time when WWE, we're going to go on to my WWE career, but they weren't really hiring guys in their 30s. They wanted younger guys, and I was already in my 30s. So he was one of those guys like, come on, guys, we need to hire this guy because, it's not because he's 30, it's because he knows how to wrestle, even though WWE screwed up on a lot of those things when my career was in WWE, but whatever. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to it. Another awesome little match that I spotted was against Nick Mondo in Minnesota. So Nick Mondo is an incredible talent, very short career though. So how was that match against Nick Mondo? I mean, I assume it wasn't a crazy death match because I know he's a great technical wrestler too.
It's funny. I love Nick. He's a good dude. And I can't recall the match. It's been so long ago. If I don't remember, it's probably about freaking 20 years ago. So
just about.
I can't recall if it was. I can't recall that match, but I can recall several other matches. I was pretty fortunate coming up in the Indies that I wrestled in a organization called Steel Domain Wrestling. Steel Domain Wrestling was like the home for a lot of guys that were coming up in the wrestling business. The guys that were on our roster were like CM Punk, me, Jerry Lynn, Lenny Lane, Ken Anderson, ODB, Austin Aries. These are all guys that were regulars on this show. So we were very fortunate to all be able to wrestle against each other. Who else can I think? Brad J, Ryan Braddock in WWE. Gosh, I could probably go on and on. Guys that were anybody that was from Chicago, Minneapolis, Wisconsin, anywhere in that area. If you could work, you were wrestling with us. So I really appreciate those times that we were able to. Punk, when I met Punk, he might have been 16 or 17 years old. So he was just a young guy. And I wasn't, he might have been 18 because he ain't that much younger than me. Because I think I was like 22 or 23. So yeah, I think he's 40. Is he 41? So
about that.
Is he 41?
He's in his 40s.
But yeah,
he's getting old.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, he's in his 40s. Yeah, but yeah, and he was doing all kinds of crazy stuff back then, and it was just innovative. So
he's
he
42.
definitely won that. 42. Yeah. So yeah, I was 22. So he's like 20. So he wasn't that young, but yeah. He was a very, very good guy back then. We were all really close in that company, and we worked probably once a month, if not twice a month, for that organization. And most of the time, those guys from Chicago would drive over those 5 or 6 hours to come wrestle. And we put on a great show, and then we'd go over there and wrestle sometimes over there. So it was a real good experience.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, for you, having had the chance to be at the later stages of ECW, you're right there. You're right on the cusp of possibly getting on television, and that's taken away. But then you have these great memories in SDW. But another great opportunity that I'd seen in my research, and I actually watched the match about 40 minutes ago, 27th of November 2000 on WWF Jacked against Raven.
Oh yeah.
So how did this opportunity come about, and what was that experience like, being at the show of shows in the WWE at that point in time? Well, I guess it would have been WWF at the time, but
which was funny is because if I remember correctly, was ECW still going on then? Because I think I was still there. Yeah. So I was working for ECW, and then they invited me to do a Jacked or whatever it was back then.
Metal.
They invited me to do a show, and I remember when I got there, Raven was really cool. He was like, "Hey, I want to give you a couple moves, this and that." And I remember them. I remember us doing the match, coming back, and I remember them yelling at him because he gave me too much. And he was like, "Guys, look at how big this kid is. Like, I can't beat him up and pin him." And I was so appreciative of that. He was like, "I know they don't want me to let you do too much, but fuck them. I'm just going to let you do whatever you want. So we'll just let you have a couple moves on me, and then we'll go from there." And I was like, "Wow, that's super cool." So I was very happy about that. I remember wrestling another dark match guy named Just Joe.
Oh yeah, we love him.
Back in WWE, I wrestled him once as well on a dark match. I think that was my first dark match that I ever had.
Okay.
And then it was Raven, and but probably the most notable dark match I ever had in WWE that probably not a lot of people know about was Brock Lesnar and Sheldon Benjamin against me and another guy. And Jesse Ventura, the governor of Minnesota, walked them to the ring.
Oh,
and
really?
It was pretty freaking wild. So
wow, that's amazing.
That is crazy.
Yeah, that's the 4th of June 2001. You teamed with a guy called Scotty Zappa.
Got Zappa. Yep. He was a guy from Minneapolis, and it was that was probably the funnest time. I mean, after that I had some fun times, but at that moment in my life, I was like, wow, this is crazy, because the place went fucking bananas.
Oh, yeah.
So can I say fucking?
Of course.
But yeah, they went bananas, and it was just such a great experience for me.
Yeah, cool, bro. And we're Australians, so you can fucking swear as much as you want.
I like to swear, so my second life, I work at a strip club, so I see pussy all the time, so I can swear a lot. So I apologize. So if I say that, I apologize.
Did they give you any feedback back then? I guess they're giving you opportunities to dark matches. Do you remember?
Yeah, that was kind of there was a period in time. My first son was born in 2002. And during that time, I was trying to juggle being a father for the first time and being a wrestler. And with every time I would go to a dark match, and I would get all this great feedback, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna hire you, or we're gonna do this for you. We're gonna bring you down and have a tryout in OVW." And I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And then I'd call them and be like, "Well, we don't really got anything for you right now. Just stay in touch and we'll try to work something out." And then after a while, I was like, "Oh God."
Yeah.
It got frustrating. And then it kind of boiled over in 2001 when I wrestled Brock and Sheldon. We had a great match. Brock wanted to wrestle me the next night in North Dakota. He was like, "Hey man, I want to wrestle him the next night in North Dakota." So they asked me to come to North Dakota and do a show and wrestle Brock. And the Briscoe brothers were actually our agents because they were looking over Brock's career and making sure that he was doing the right things while he was coming up in the company. Before he debuted, this is when he was actually wearing his University of Minnesota, like, ring trunks, his singlet, way back then. And so it was, and then after that match, they were like, oh my God, you're going to, and then even Brock was like, you're going to get a job. They're going to hire you. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm so excited. I remember calling back like a week later because they're like, give us like a week and we're going to get everything worked out for your tryout. So I was like, give them a week. They don't call me back. I call them another week. They don't call me back. And I'm just like, I'm kind of frustrated by then. And then I did another show for TNA in Nashville. And I did a tag team match with Mr. Kennedy, me, and outside the ring was ODB. We did a tag match with some local guys on a dark match. And they did the same thing to me. They're like, we're gonna bring you in. You got to give us like a week or two to get everything worked out. It's going to be, we want to make you and Ken Anderson the new DX. And I was like, man, I'm like hearing this every time.
Yeah.
You are feeding us some shit. And I'm like, okay. So I remember coming home, giving them a call, them not calling me back, giving them a call again, them not calling me back. And then I was just like, okay, do I want to be a wrestler and go through this shit for many years? Or do I want to be a father? And for probably about 18 months, I chose being a father. I gave up the wrestling business.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to be a dad. And I don't regret it at all. And then I stayed away from the business because I knew if I would go back and see a match, I'd want to be a goddamn wrestler.
Right, yeah.
So I stayed away. And it was funny because I was in downtown Minneapolis and there would be a local indie show that would always wrestle at First Avenue. It was a place that actually Prince used to own. It was right across the street from the Target Center in Minneapolis. And I was literally drinking one night and I walked by First Avenue and I like see this ring truck. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, and I look over and it says wrestling tonight. I'm like, oh shit, cool. So I like walk in and I paid the cover. I just walked in and then a bunch of like the indie guys were like, a bunch of the guys that were local guys were like, Justin, what are you doing here? And I'm like, hey man, I was just freaking passing by. And they're like, stop it. I'm like, no, really, I was passing by. I am like half in the bag right now. And I like see a ring truck and I just walk in the building. And then I was like watching the matches and I was just like, fuck, I need to do this again.
Yeah.
Oh God, I need to do this again. Right. And I remember the next month I was on the same show and Sheldon Benjamin was there. Because, dude, it'd be crazy. Sheldon Benjamin would show up to like local shows when he was off the road. And I remember I was like talking to him before the match and he's like, hey, where the fuck you been? And I was like, I just told him the whole deal. And he was like, no, I get it. He goes, I totally get it. And, I understand you want to be a dad and everything, but he goes, you were born to be a wrestler. It's exactly what he said to me. You were born to be a wrestler, be a fucking wrestler. And then I wrestled my match and he was like, Justin, you need to be a wrestler and I'm going to get you a job. So he literally called Mark Carano, who was part of Talent at the time, then John Laurinaitis. And I had a tryout in like Nebraska, I think it was. I think it was like somewhere in Nebraska. I think Omaha, Nebraska or somewhere. It might have been South Dakota, Nebraska area, Iowa, somewhere like that. And that's when they were like, hey, we're going to give you a tryout and you're going to go to Deep South. And he goes, we can hire you in Deep South. And I was thinking to myself, fuck, Atlanta? I don't know if I want to go to Atlanta. I'm not really an Atlanta guy. But that's where I ended up going. and I stayed there. I was supposed to be there for 4 days. I ended up staying there for like 11 or 12 days because they actually had SmackDown and Raw the second week I was there in Atlanta and in Columbus. Columbus, Georgia. Is that right? Columbus, Georgia? Yeah.
Yep.
In Columbus, Georgia. And yeah, that's where it all started for me. They actually, and what's funny is, and then it happened again. So I was there for like 11 days, 12 days. They hire me. Me and John Laurinaitis are talking over the contract, like the stipulations of everything. And I don't know what happened or who heard it, because at the time I'm like 30, I'm 30 some years old. And at the time WWE was giving out like $500 a week contracts.
Yeah.
And I couldn't work for $500 a week.
Yeah.
I have kids and I wasn't going to do it. So I told them, I said, I needed at least $750, because at the time I had a job where I was making like 80 grand a year. So why am I going to give up an $80,000 a year job for 25 grand a year?
Yeah.
I mean, I got to get something. So I told them, I said, I'll do it for $750. So I'm taking a risk, but within 90 days, I want to get bumped to $1,000 a week. And I said, because I can live on that, because I can't, I had house and stuff like that back in Minneapolis, and but I can live on that, but I can't live on I can't live on like 500 a week.
Yeah.
I just can't,
Hell no.
because, and I remember them going, yep, we're going to hire you. Them calling me the next day, remember John Laurinaitis calling me the next day going, and dude, I almost put in my 2-week notice. I almost quit my job. And John Laurinaitis calls me. He's like, hey kid, we were going to hire you, but someone overheard the conversation and got butthurt about how much I was going to pay you. And we can't bring you in now. I was like, what? Are you fucking kidding me?
Wow.
Are you fucking kidding me right now? And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. Just stay in touch. Dude, I remember calling Ken Anderson and going, what the fuck kind of Mickey Mouse organization am I going to try to get into here? And Ken's like, Justin, stay calm. He goes, email John and just thank him for, the opportunity. And I told Ken, I was like, fuck him, man. Fuck that dude. And he was like, no. He goes, Justin, trust me. Just email him and tell him, thank him for the opportunity. And then, if they have anything, you'd be willing to go there. And I go, and at first I was like, man, fuck this shit. I ain't doing this. And, I'm not fucking giving up my money, my job. And it's a secure job for, 80 grand, for 25 grand a year.
Yeah.
Or, and all this shit. And so I sent him this email. I don't know, maybe, dude, it was like a week and a half goes by. John emails me back and says, thank you very much. He goes, I appreciate it. He goes, if we have anything, we'll definitely stay in touch. And I was like, thanks, John. But I really want to say, fuck you, John. But I didn't. So probably another week and a half goes by, and Ken calls me and he goes, hey, has John been trying to call you? And I'm like, yeah. I go, no, he hasn't been trying to call me. And he goes, no, he's been trying to call you. And I go, well, my phone hasn't rang. And I had the same number for like 9 years. So I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my God.
And I know he has my number because we talked. He's called me before. And he goes, well, call him back. And I go, okay. Well, I'm thinking this in my head. I did not say that to Ken. I'm just thinking this in my head. I'm like, I'm still mad about the guy. I'm like, man, fuck this dude. But okay. So I call him back. And I go, hey, Mr. Laurinaitis, it's Justin. And he's like, hey, kid, we want to hire you. We want to bring you in. And I'm like, really? But just so you know, we can't bring you in for the $750 a week. We got to do it for $500. And I'm thinking, this motherfucker, you're really trying to call me, trying to offer me a job. And at the time I was still married. Me and my wife were still married. And I called my wife up and I'm like, so what do you want to do? And she's like, if you take $500, I'll fucking kill you. And I was like, okay. So I remember thinking, can I go, John, I need to call you back. I need to call you back. So I need to speak to, some people about this. And I just remember, my mother when I was younger, when we were talking about stuff earlier about my football career and stuff like that, I had a lot of tragedy that happened during that time with my mother. My mother passed away tragically, and it's just stuff I just don't like to talk about. I'm sorry, I didn't want to really indulge in that stuff.
No, that's fine.
No, that's fine.
Totally fine.
It just kind of brings back, sad memories of my life back then. My mother was tragically killed back then, so a lot of people don't know that. And but I remember going back to the John Laurinaitis thing. I remember thinking my mom didn't want to ever have me working in a factory. She's like, for anything that you do in your life, do not work in a fucking factory. I don't want you to do that. So I remember calling my wife up and I was like, I think I'm going to take this job. And she's like, you know what? I think you should do it. And I was like, you sure? And she's like, yeah, you should do it. And I'm like, okay. And the funny thing was that she wasn't telling me that she was leaving me.
Oh, fuck.
So,
Fuck.
yeah. So when I took the job, my wife moved out. And I remember I had like a month to move to Louisville. And I had to make a choice, quit my job, move to Louisville and lose my wife, or go in the wrestling business. And of course I chose the wrestling business.
Fucking hell, wrestling. Do it again, man.
Usually the marriage is the casualty once someone's been on the road for years and they distance with each other. This is just you just finally just getting the job in the first place.
Yeah, and she was like, she's like, I've been through this road with you and I know how much this makes you happy. And I just don't want to move out of state. She goes, if you would have, got a job where you weren't able to move out of state, I think we'd have been able to make this work. And I was like, I'm like, hey, you knew there was a possibility that I'd have to move. I'm not saying it's going to happen forever, but I have to move out of state. And she was like, yeah, but I don't think this is right for me. And I go, I'm going to be back in 6 months. And it's been like, the beginning of 2006, I still haven't been back to Minnesota. So I think she was right. It's been 14 years that I haven't been back. So,
Wow.
It's been a long, long time.
Yeah, man. Well, that was a fantastic story. We love those like behind the scenes things and stories of that nature. So that was a really great story. Thanks for sharing that with us. So I guess you're going to OVW in 2006. And my question was, how did that opportunity come about? But you've just told us. Yeah.
I remember it was funny because they told me that I had to go to Deep South at first. And I told them because of where I was from and the fact that I would be able to drive home to see my kids, to see my son at the time. I have kids now, but I had a kid then. Because of OVW being only about 8 or 9 hours away from Minneapolis in Louisville, in Louisville, they call it the Vol. I chose Louisville. They gave me the opportunity to choose. At first, they wanted me to go to Deep South, but I was like, if I'm going to take less money, you got to give me an opportunity to choose. And I actually, at that time, I was talking to Dreamer on the phone, and I told Dreamer that. He was like, yeah. He goes, if you want to go to OVW, completely fine. And he goes, to be honest with you, man, he goes, OVW has a lot of wrestling shows, and he goes, Deep South really doesn't have a lot of wrestling shows. So he goes, and you're kind of older, so it's probably best that, you go to OVW because, guys are, he told me straight up, man, guys are getting beat up over in Deep South. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to get beat up. so I'll choose OVW. But I got to give a shout out to Bill DeMont. Bill DeMont he really pushed for me to get hired as well when I had my tryout in Deep South. Bill DeMott. I know there's a stigmatism on Bill because of his training tactics and whatnot, but you know, people have a lot of bad things to say about Bill, but Bill was nothing but awesome to me. I can't really say anything bad about Bill DeMott. He really talked to me and really pushed me to get a job there, and I really appreciate that Bill did that for me.
That's awesome, man. Bro. Jack, I know you had a set of questions there, but Bam,
I've already sorted and done it all my document. Okay, I'm going with it, so we're good. So is it back to me then?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. So what was the first day backstage in WWE like, and also walk us through a typical week of what it was like to be a WWE superstar?
You know, it's funny when I was living in Louisville, they were talking about moving us to Florida. This is right before I debuted, and I was like, and they were talking about putting me on the road at that time, and I was like, if you're going to put me on the road, can I just stay in Louisville? And they're like, no, we need you to be in Florida. And I'm like, you're going to move me all the way to Florida, and I guarantee you're going to put me on the main roster, and then I'm going to be in Florida, where at the time I didn't want to be. Even though I love Florida now, I still live in Florida. But I like Louisville because it was kind of college town, and it was really a great place to be, you know. And I really like Louisville. So I remember when we moved, I go, yeah, are you going to move me on the main roster? And they're like, no, we don't plan on it. Dude, it was like, I think I was there for 10 days. And they're like, oh, we're debuting you. And I'm like, motherfuckers, man, you guys love to fuck me over. I was just like, I tried to stay calm, but I was going to do a Kevin Kelly nails situation where I was going to start fucking choking people. But I did not want to do that. And I wanted to stay calm. You know who Kevin Kelly is?
Yeah.
Situation with Vince where he choked Vince out?
No, I didn't know that.
No, I don't know this.
Oh, Kevin Kelly his name is Nails. He was Nails.
Oh, Nails.
Back in WWF.
Commentator.
Oh, right. Yeah, I thought you were talking
about. No, not commentator.
I was going to say
Nails.
I wouldn't think that Kevin Kelly would do it. Yeah, no, Nails.
Yeah, Kevin Kelly Nails choked out Vince a long time ago, and he's basically been blackballed out of WWE ever since. And at one point, I wanted to pull a Kevin Kelly, and choke somebody. Needless to say. So going to your question, the first day I was there in WWE, they go talk to Barry Windham and figure out what you're going to do. So I'm like, okay. So Barry Windham, he says, sit down, kid. I'm like, all right, man. And he goes, you know how to speak Spanish, right? I was like, what? He goes, you know how to speak Spanish? I was like, no. And he's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. And I go, what am I doing? He goes, well, you're gonna be a bodyguard for Chavo Guerrero. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, that's cool. And he goes, so what you're gonna do is we're gonna have you go to the ring and jump Kane. I was like, really?
Oh.
And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, this sounds like this is gonna be, you know. At that time, they really weren't debuting people with a lot of fire.
Yeah.
You know, they were just debuting people with some matches. You know, when WWE was going on at that time, they didn't know what to do with a lot of us guys. They wanted to debut us, but they didn't have any like direction. And I remember going there going, man, if I debut against somebody like Triple H and get my ass kicked in like 12 seconds, this is not going to be cool. So, but they were like, yeah, you're going to debut. We're going to have you jump Kane. And I go, okay, cool. That's awesome. Fucking whatever you guys want to do. And I remember sitting there talking to Glenn, and Glenn was fucking amazing. He was like, okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to hit me as hard as you can with the ECW belt. I was like, what? And he's like, you know, safely. And I was like, okay. But he goes, I want you to swing it. If anything happens and and you bust me open, don't worry about it. Okay. Don't worry about it. It's good TV. And I remember going, okay, let's, I'll do whatever you want me to do. So I remember us going through all this, and I remember going to the ring, like getting ready to go to the ring to debut. They're already outside talking. And I remember Shawn Michaels walking up to me and being like, this is where you need to make an impact. This is where you really need to make an impact. You really need to tear him out. And I'm thinking to myself, either this guy's working me or he really wants me to nail him. So, okay, I'm going to go out there and try to make an impact. And he goes, do your best, man. Good luck. And I was like, all right. And I never said more than one word to Shawn Michaels ever in my career before that. So it was just like, hey, hello, how are you? And it was like, hey, how are you? And then him like saying that to me was like getting me all pumped up. And I remember walking to the ring and them jumping, I remember jumping him, and I remember hitting Kane with the belt and going, oh fuck, I just busted him open. I'm done.
No way.
I'm like, shit. And he's like, keep hitting me. And I'm like, and I'm hitting him. I'm like, you're bleeding. I'm sorry. He goes, keep going. And I remember it was such a great experience. And I'll remember that for probably till the day I die. He was such a good sport about that. And he really tried for me. He really did try for me. He was a good guy. He is a good guy. It's not like he's dead. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kane's awesome, man. That would have been such a surreal experience. I mean, we were talking about it earlier and just being like, imagine finally getting to WWE and the first thing you do is you're beating down Kane. Like, crazy moment, man.
I know. I remember going, fuck, this is amazing. I remember hitting him going, this is where I need to be. This is where I should have been 5 years ago. They wouldn't have fucked me over. No.
So who came up with the name Bam Neely?
Oh, so I remember we were sitting in, I debuted in Boston.
Yep.
And we were trying to come up with a name. Like they gave me all kinds of names because the name I had in FCW and OVW is Justin the Ox LaRoche. And it was like, what do because on the indies, my wrestling name was Magnus Maximus. And then when I got to OVW, it was, okay, we can't use Magnus because Magnus, we've already had a Magnus here. So I came up with Justin the Ox LaRoche. So when I debuted in WWE, it was like, okay, what are we going to name him? And they gave me like 20 names, and all of them were fucking lame.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, man, what the fuck? And me and John Laurinaitis were just sitting there with Arn Anderson, and Arn's like, how about Bam? Like Bam Bam. He's, you're bald. You kind of look like Bam Bam. And I'm like, okay, I like Bam. That's cool. That's a cool name. And then Laurinaitis was like looking around. He's like, how about Neely? Like Cam Neely, And I was like, Bam Neely. And he goes, yeah. And then Vince is like yelling it out, Bam Neely. Yeah, I fucking like that name. Bam Neely. And I was like, all right, cool. And then Vince is like introducing it like Howard Finkel. He was like introducing it like Bam Neely. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm like, all right, cool. And then Vince is like, yeah. He goes, we need to get you a suit. And I was like, what? He's like, we need to get you a suit. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Whatever you want. I'm like, I'll start out. He goes, I want you to start out in a suit. And I go, okay, cool. We can do that. So they went and they ran to the store and bought me a suit. And that's the first thing that they did. And that's how I debuted in the suit. That was not my suit. It was actually given to me by a production person. They went out, they ran to the store and bought it. And the border guard gimmick, I had no idea even what the hell that was. When they said I was like a border guard, I'm like, all right, whatever. As long as I get in this ring and get to work and wrestle, totally awesome. And then I realized, months later, I wasn't going to be a wrestler, and I was going to just, be with Chavo.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like getting in the ring, I watched this earlier. It was your TV debut in the ring, you and Chavo in a handicap match against Kane on ECW on Sci-Fi. Tell me a little bit about your first television match that you had at this point as Bam Neely.
Yeah, it was interesting to say the least, because they didn't know if they wanted to have me in wrestling gear or if they wanted to have me in a suit. And Chavo was like, guys, just let him be in the suit for now. And then if we want to get him in like, pants or whatnot, we'll move to that situation later. And at first they were like, no, he needs to be in trunks and wrestling gear. And Chavo goes, then why are you making him a border guard? Like, he needs to, you know what I mean? Why say he's a border guard? The guy has wrestling trunks and wrestling boots the next week. Like, come on, man, let's try to live the gimmick.
Yeah.
And Chavo was trying to push that, but they were just, at that time in the business, they were just so they were so crazy because, 2 weeks later after that, I debuted in trunks and everything. And I'm like, I always laugh because, 10 years later, everybody's wearing shirts, everybody's wearing pants. Nobody wears like trunks anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they were so hell bent on everybody being in trunks. Everybody's got to be in trunks. And I was like, that's not my gimmick though. My gimmick is kind of like I should be in work pants and and honestly, I pitched to them the flap jacket gimmick where I could wear a flap jacket. You kind of like Roman Reigns.
Right.
Probably, not as nice as Roman, but they were like, no, you can't wear that. Dude, fucking 3 years after I left there, they fucking had Roman and those guys in that fucking gimmick.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like, come on. So that's the part that pissed me off. I was just like, shit, man. You tell me that we just can't do that. What do you mean we can't do that? You don't want to do that, or we can't do that? And it was more like, oh, I don't know. And then it was so, like I said, I'll keep going back to the fact that there was so much miscommunication at that time in the company.
Wow.
Like, so much miscommunication. Like, I remember having a conversation with Vince like a month into the gimmick, and he was like, the first night they were like, we don't want you taking any bumps. And then it was the next 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, we want you taking bumps. And then Vince, like a month later, being like, oh, why are you taking bumps? We didn't want you to take any bumps.
Yeah.
We didn't want you. And I'm just like, well, fucking tell the agents, and don't get me wrong. It wasn't, I'm not going to throw agents under the bus because I liked all the agents I had, but I think it was the higher ups, even higher than them, who were telling them, okay, we want him to take bumps because we know he can take bumps and he knows how to wrestle, because they had heard that.
Yeah.
And that's the part that was like very frustrating to me as a person, that if you're going to build me up as this big guy, then build me up that way, or don't, and just let me be me. Because in the beginning they were like, don't talk. We don't want you to talk. And I'm just like, that's not me though, man. I'm a shit talker. That's what I do. I'm really good at it. I'll shit talk all day and I'll get you pissed off at me. And that's where it was the miscommunication, where they were just like, they didn't know what to do with me in the beginning. And it was kind of, me and Chavo were just doing it as we went. And I give a lot of credit to Chavo because, till this day, me and Chavo are still close. If Chavo calls me, I'll answer the phone. I feel like if I called him, he'd answer the phone. He's such an amazing guy, and I appreciate every minute that I had with him.
That's awesome, man. And
cool.
Jack, I mean, this is evidence right here. This is where it's all beginning to go downhill. That's why in 2020 or 2021, shit is still happening on television that doesn't make any sense. And I just feel like the red tape behind the scenes
the difference
is just so
they're all
thick.
getting paid a lot more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And they've got people writing the shows that don't know anything about wrestling.
Yeah, it's just like, it just seems like behind the scenes, backstage, miscommunication. Yeah, an idea starts from here, and by the time it gets to completion, it's changed so much because so many people are throwing in their 2 cents, and by the end of it, no one knows what's going on. That's why I think so much is wrong today, and it seems like back then, this is where it's starting to begin.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because, you know, Ryan Braddock, Brad J, he was my roommate. Like, we lived together in Florida, and he debuted against Big Show. Who the fuck debuts against Big Show?
Terrible
Like,
idea.
come on. You know, it's like, you want to fucking kill a guy's career right away? You fucking debut him against Big Show? Really?
Yeah.
Come on, man. You want him to get over, so you debut him against Big Show. Yeah, good fucking decision. And then Big Show's like, what the hell? What am I doing? Like, what, you're debuting right now and you're debuting against me? Even Big Show was like, what the fuck is going on? You know? It was like one of the agents that was one of the writers, not agents, but one of the writers at the time was Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah.
Freddie Prinze Jr. was the agent when I was there. And, you know, he had all these great ideas for La Familia. Are you rolling a joint, man? That's fucking cool.
No,
really
it's just tobacco.
Is this guy really rolling a joint? I'm like, oh my God, this is a great show.
Oh man.
I could have lied, but I didn't want. I had to disappoint you there. I didn't want to lie.
No, it's okay. So Freddie Prinze Jr. was there, and he had all these great ideas for La Familia, and we were like going through all these things with like with my character and Chavo, and you know, and with Edge and Vicky and Hawkins and Ryder. You know, what's funny is that because I had a big feud against Hawkins and Ryder in OVW, and then I debuted in WWE, and I'm their partner.
Yeah,
I'm buddies with them, so it was kind of ironic. It's funny, you know. But needless to say, you know, Freddie Prinze had all these great ideas, and every single idea he had was shot down. And then you wonder why he quit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He quit. He was only there for a small. You have Freddie Prinze Jr., a guy that has done a lot of producing, a lot of story writing in the movie industry, and you just cast him aside because you think your ideas are better. I'm sorry, man. You had a brainiac when it comes to story in the building, and you guys just threw him aside, and you made him quit. You didn't fire him. You made him quit, and that was really, really sad. And then at that point, when that happened, I was just like, man, this isn't good. When he ended up quitting, because I remember him coming up to me, and because me and him would always talk every single SmackDown and Raw. We'd have conversations because he had all kinds of great ideas for my character and like things that we could do, and we kind of like would throw ideas back and forth at each other. And I thought some of the stuff that he had was great. I remember him throwing an idea at me that I had a split personality, and I thought that, you know, I would branch off from Chavo, and I thought that I was working for somebody else, and I actually was working for myself. I was actually like insane. So, and it was great, man. He had like all these vignettes set up, and it was a great, great thing, but WWE just cast it aside and didn't want anything to do with it. And then they have The Fiend now, which is kind of the same fucking deal.
Oh my God. Man.
Even though Bray's my boy, man. Me and Bray, he's a good dude, man. Really good guy. He still lives in Florida here, and we see each other every few months. So he's a good dude.
That's awesome. Cool, man.
But, yeah.
Cool, man. Great insight once again. Another interesting tidbit I saw was you working with the Big Show on some house shows. I just wanted to see what it was like working with the Big Show, because I know the Big Show was under the learning tree of The Undertaker. So when another big man comes in, I can totally see Big Show working with you and hopefully trying to help you out along the way. How was that experience?
Big Show was great, man. He was always had a lot of knowledge, and it was sad because we wrestled a dark match for SummerSlam. Me and Big Show wrestled a dark match for SummerSlam, and that same night, Big Show was supposed to jump Undertaker to set up for, I think, Survivor Series or one of the big pay-per-views. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but he was like, you know, him and Vince talked over the match with me and Show how we wanted it to be done, and Big Show was like, I want to give you a little bit more, but I can't give you too much because I have to do this thing with Undertaker. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I remember we had a match, and it went over really well. But it was only like, I think it might have been like 10 minutes, maybe 11 minutes. And they were very upset with him on the time. They wanted to go like 18 to 20 minutes, and they wanted Chavo more involved. But I understood what Show was trying to do. He was trying to make sure that later in the show that he was going to get over with Taker, and because we had just got out of a feud with Taker at that time, and he wanted to have his good feud with Taker, so I got it. But Show was amazing to me because when you're coming up in the wrestling business, you don't make a lot of money, and you don't have a lot of perks that the big stars have. You don't, the hotels and the cars and all these things that the wrestlers have, the top guys have. You don't have access to that. Like, you're sharing more times than not when you're coming up, you're sharing a car with 2 or 3 people. I was fortunate enough to be traveling with Chavo most of the time. So me and Chavo, and we'd always have like Chuck Palumbo in the car, and we'd have a few other wrestlers in the car with us, and I would have a great time. I usually was the driver because I didn't drink. So I've changed that narrative now, but but yeah, at that time I really didn't do much drinking. So I was mostly the designated driver. And then Big Show would always give us his rent-a-car. Like, he would always like be done. If he didn't go to TV, he would always rent the car for like 2 extra days. And he would have this big, huge monster SUV. Wow. And we would always be traveling in this like small compact, like a mid-sized car.
Yeah.
And he would always be like, "Hey, Bam, you want my SUV for the next couple of days?" I'm like, "Just drop it off at the airport." I'm like, "All right, cool, man." So he'd always give me his cars. He'd let me stay in his rooms. Like, he was super cool to me, man. He was always really nice to me, and I was really appreciative of that.
Oh, that's cool, man.
I have a funny story with Big Show.
Go for it, man.
He's like, we were doing a 6-man tag, and it was me and Chavo, and I think Mark Henry, and I think it was Big Show, Triple H, and I think CM Punk was in the match, and Big Show did a sunset flip on Chavo. Now, Chavo did one to Big Show. Big Show did it to Chavo.
That's ridiculous.
And it was the funniest fucking shit ever. We laughed our fucking asses off for like an hour. It was hilarious. Hilarious. Hold on one second. I got to plug in my my headphones. I don't know, they're dying on me, I guess. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can still say it.
All right. If these things come off, I'll just talk to you guys through the speaker on this thing. All right. Hold on one second.
Sure.
Give me 1 second. This Zoom thing. Can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
All good.
All right, cool. Sorry about that. But yeah, Big Show was a great guy.
Yeah, cool, bro.
He's a super good guy.
Over to you, Jack. There's a little story here about Australia that we'd like to hear from.
Sure, yeah. So you did an Australian house show in Sydney with The Undertaker and Kane. How was your experience?
I did. It was good. It was there was a couple other funny things. We got to the building. We had no idea. It was me and Chavo. We got to the building, and they were like, "Yeah, it's going to be you and Chavo against Kane and Taker." I was like, "What?" And it like 20-some thousand people, and we're like, "Excuse me, it's just us two?" And he's like, "Yeah." And as the day went on, I remember just like walking by Taker, and I'm like, he's like, "Yeah, we're going to talk later." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, and he just keeps walking by me, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Is he going to talk to me? Like, we're getting pretty close to this match, and we got to figure this shit out. And he's like, all right. He goes, we'll just go in there and we'll just wing it. And I was like, okay, we'll wing it. And I'm thinking, this is Undertaker. If I do anything fucked up to him, he's going to kill me. And I'm like, oh God, he's going to kill me. So I'm just like, I kind of was, he wanted to see if I was going to get stressed out.
but I was staying very calm. And I remember just watching the monitor and just chilling out. And eventually he came up to me and like we talked, and he was very cool and we had a great match. But what happened was, as the day went on, they ended up adding Khali to the match.
Right.
It was me and Ali. And it kind of upset me because I wanted it to just be me and Chavo against Kane and Taker, which I don't know if they thought that Khali was going to make it better because he was a bigger guy. But it, you know, and I love Khali, but at that time he wasn't in the best shape. When I talked to his body, wasn't in the best shape, and he was hurting a lot, and it didn't actually help the match. It actually hurt the match. But, you know, I had a great experience. I had a good time in the ring with those two guys. And I remember him coming back to the back and looking at me, and he goes, "You're ready to go." He's like, "You're ready to go. You can, we're going to get you going." And when Taker says that to you, he gives you like that vote of confidence. That's when you know that you've actually somewhat arrived. You still got to do more, but if you get that vote of confidence from him, you're pretty much good.
Awesome.
So what was also like the most frustrating thing about the company at the time? I mean, you kind of listed a lot of them, but was there one thing that just ultimately really just at the end of the day, like this would just be the one thing that would just piss you right off? Like, what was the most frustrating thing that you could sort of think of about the company in 2008?
You know, I remember sitting, it was probably the last part, probably maybe a couple months before my time was up there. And, you know, my contract was coming to an end at that time. And we were talking about renewing my contract. And I remember we kind of negotiated what we were going to do. And Vince walks up to me and he goes, he looks at me and he goes, "You know, you are the worst bodyguard that this company's ever had."
What?
And I looked and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" And I'm like thinking in my head, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" And he's like, "You need to show me something tonight. You need to show me some fire." And I said to Vince, I go, "Vince, if you didn't have every agent tell me to fucking," he goes, "I didn't want you bumping all over the place." And I said, "You should tell every agent that keeps telling me to bump all over the place to fucking not." I said, "You're the one that told you, they're the ones that telling me to fucking bump. I am being told what to do and I'm fucking doing it. So maybe maybe the people here should just figure it out and try to get their shit straight." And Chavo's like, looks at Vince and he's like, "Yeah, Vince." He goes, "We're trying here. Like, this is, you guys change the narrative every week." Yeah. So he stuck up for it. And that's when we had the thing where Chavo wrestled R-Truth. And after the match, I kind of fucked Chavo by accident. I ended up fucking Chavo by accident. I remember Chavo pushing me, and I remember pushing him back. And I figured, okay, maybe we can have like a little mini feud, me and Chavo. And I remember the next week we get into the building, and me and Chavo are like, "Yeah, maybe we can have a little feud, and you can go off and do your own thing." And he goes, "I can do my own thing." But they both go, "No, we want you both as heels. So we're not going to do that." And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "Justin, we have a different direction we're going to go with you. And we want you to be a heel still." And I go, and Chavo's like, "Don't let me be a baby face, and we can have a little, like, you know, a little something. I can get him over as a big bad heel."
Yeah.
Because Chavo was trying to push for me. He was really trying to push for me to get over as a heel. And he goes, "And then I'll change the narrative." He goes, "Like in a month." He goes, "I can be hated. He goes, I can be liked for a little bit, and then I can be hated." He goes, "It's okay. We'll change it back." And they're like, no, that's not what we want to do. And they were just like, "Oh my God." And that was the frustrating part, was like, they just didn't have any direction. It was like, I would watch all my, you know, the guys that I really liked in developmental, like Sean Spears, Colt Cabana, you know, Bradley Ryan Braddock. They just fucked their whole goddamn careers up in that company because they had no direction. It just was a constant battle of, okay, what are we going to do with this guy this week? If you don't know what you're going to do with that guy, don't fucking do anything. Don't put him on TV. Don't do that with that guy. And that was the frustrating. Like, it was so frustrating. And then it boiled over for me at the end, when I can't remember my last match. I think I did like a 6-man tag. They're like, we're going to have you go back to FCW. And I was like, okay. And he goes, we're going to have you go with Dusty and learn how to do a new gimmick. And I was like, well, okay. I said, sure. And he goes, from now on, we want you to go back there and work on your new gimmick, and we're going to try to renegotiate a contract with you. So I remember them trying to renegotiate a contract with me. It was like, I think they wanted to go from like $50,000 a year, even though I was making more money because I was on the road all the time. They called it a downside. They wanted to go like 75, and I was just like, man, I remember telling John, I'm like, John, I need to get at least 100. I need at least 100 grand. And it's so funny because most of the guys that are on TV now are making like 400 grand.
Yeah.
They're downside.
Yeah.
Like 400 grand is like the minimum. Like, I'm fighting to get 100 grand. And it's funny because we were just sitting there and he was just like, I don't know. He goes, I don't know if we can do this. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a fucking $1 billion company. And you want me, what we really want you to do is we want you to go back to FCW and like help out the training that some of the new guys. And we want you to work on vignettes there. He goes, we don't want you to kill yourself or anything like that, but we'll bring you to TV and kind of figure out what we're going to do with you from there. And I remember like pitching them the gimmicks that Freddie Prinze was pitching to me, about, the split personality. And then I had a couple other like ideas as well that I was trying to pitch them. And I remember them asking me to go to Connecticut to do vignettes with Stephanie. And I'm like, okay. So I remember getting ready for that. And then that's when they fucking released me. And they let me go.
Fucking hell, man. It's so frustrating. Like, they say, oh, we don't want to do this with you. We don't want to do that with you. But they don't even know what they want to do with you. Like,
yeah,
if you're pitching ideas and they're shooting them down, then the retort should be an idea in retort, like, okay, we don't want to do that. Here's the idea that we're going with, and then stick to the idea. This is supposed to be the biggest wrestling company on earth that has ever existed. And at that point, for them to be like that towards you and so many other people is just insane to me.
It reminded me of like when they didn't when, not to put anybody down, it was like when Bret Hart was champion. Those years, they really didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have a direction in those years. The company, the business was down, downtime in the wrestling business. And, Vince, his narrative in 2008, 2009 was so crazy because he was trying to compete with UFC. You will never compete with UFC. UFC, the thing about UFC, and don't get me wrong, I like UFC, but real fights aren't pretty.
Yeah.
There's story there. You can create story like Conor McGregor in the last few years has created story, but he always creates a narrative so people will watch his fights. He does a lot of shit talking, but he knows how to sell tickets. That's about selling tickets. Making people want to come and either watch him get his ass kicked or watch him win the fight. But as a narrative, and Vince was so worried at that time about competing with the UFC that he just lost sight of the wrestling business. He was like, if you get counted out, you're out. Like, back in the day, you do a, 1, 2, 3 count. The referees were shoot 1, 2, 3. Like they were, if you got fucking pinned, you got pinned. It didn't matter. They were fucking told they had to fucking count. And it was like, man, this is a fucking work. This is a fucking work. Like, this isn't real. This isn't UFC. If I punch someone in the face, they shouldn't just stand there, Vince. Everybody knows it's not real. Like, Stop fucking pretending it's real. At that time, he pretended it was real, and it fucking drove us insane. All of us in the company. It's like we would throw somebody out of the ring, and then we knew we'd have like 4 or 5 minutes, and the person's like at count of 9, you had to run out there and throw him back in the ring to get him in the fucking ring to do the match because he would have got counted out. You know what I mean? He wanted it real. Ooh, real. He wanted it to be real. And it just was never, come on, man. It was so frustrating. Like, I worked so hard to get to that point, you know, working on the indies and, you know, going to these ho-dunk towns and wrestling in bars for no money. My back, by the time I got into WWE, my back was so fucked up. I had needed back surgery 5 years before I even started in WWE.
Shit.
So
Jesus.
It's like when I fucking got to WWE, I thought it was going to be this, everybody knew what was going on. It was the production. Everything was like, the production in WWE is bar none the best moving production company I've ever seen in my life. But everybody doesn't like, not everybody's on the same page. And that's the so frustrating. And I could go back to it a million times. I could give you a million stories on how just people were just so like, nobody was in the right frame of mind when it came to that time in the company.
Right. Yeah. So I know you've told the story kind of how things came to an end there, but one question that I thought was important to ask was, what did you learn the most from Chavo Guerrero?
Oh, same thing as Jerry Lynn, man. How to be a professional, like making sure that you show up on time. You do the proper things that a professional does. Work on your craft was one of the things that Chavo taught me. He was, but it's also what Chavo taught me is how to be a better father. Like Chavo taught me more about being out of the ring than he did in the ring. He taught me a lot in the ring, but he taught me more outside of the ring, how to be a father, how to be a husband. Those things are the things that I learned the most from Chavo.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Such a great guy.
Yeah, no, he's awesome. I will tell a little story of how I met Chavo a bit later on. But over to you, Jack.
Sure, yeah. This will probably be my last round of questions. Of course, we love hearing these stories on the podcast. A good old professional wrestling rib. Obviously, it's been prominent in the WWE for many years now. Were you ever a victim of any ribs in the WWE, or do you have any sort of stories of any ribs that you saw or took part in?
I was never part of any ribs in WWE. Have I been part of some ribs? Yeah. I've been part of it.
All right, let's go even non-WWE. What's the best rib you've been a part of or have seen?
Oh man,
one that's not going to criminalize anyone, of course.
There's some stories that I could say, but I would rather keep them to myself. There's some stories that might hurt some people if I told them, because they're more than just ribs. They're kind of personal things.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That I would love to say some things, but it's funny, I work with I work now with one of the Gemini twins, Mike Shane, who was part of the Gemini twins, and we definitely rib each other more now than we ever did in the wrestling business. These guys like a brother to me, so I do have to admit the Shane brothers, when I was in Deep South, were very, very good to me. They were very kind to me. I wanted to do a shout out to them because when I was in Deep South, we spent a few days together there, and I've been with them ever since. We've been pretty much attached at the hip in life with our kids and everything like that. So I wanted to give a shout out to the Gemini twins, because they're definitely got in this business back in that time. They definitely got the short end of the stick as well.
I agree.
In this business, because they could have made, they were two big Jack twins. How can't you draw money with two big Jack twins?
Exactly.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. They were, people, I've heard on, podcasts or YouTube videos that, they were shitty wrestlers and this and that. People have dogged them, but you know what? They're not. they were told to do something and they did it. They were big, powerful, jacked wrestlers, and that's what they were. They were just supposed to beat people up, and that was their job with Simon Dean. They were supposed to beat people up, and they did their job. And then one of them got hurt, and then all of a sudden their career's over. Like, people get hurt in this business all the time, and it's not they're not making millions of dollars. It's not like, it was so funny at that time. If guys were making $100,000 and they were sitting at home, they'd get fired. There's guys now that are making, $400,000 and sitting at home.
Yeah.
So, and it just freaking baffles my mind. But I definitely wanted to give a shout out to them, and shout out to any, I see a lot of guys in AEW that I freaking used to work with, and I'm happy for them that they actually got another company that is actually paying well. Enough to survive. I'm so happy for that. I'm just happy that Vince has some sort of rival. I don't know if it's like 100% like rival, but I've watched more AEW in the last 10 years than I've watched of WWE. And how long has AEW been around?
So just over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, actually, we're coming up to 2 years soon.
Oh, is it 2 years?
October this year will be when like the TV show started, but when they started doing those pay-per-views.
That was in May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's and about the Shane twins, I completely agree. And I tell you what, I'd love to have them on the show. I think I'd love to get their story out there, because I find a lot of the time there's this narrative that's always put out there by these dirt sheet writers, or by people who have these websites like wrestlecrap.com, and they talk about how horrible this person or that person was. You're only as good as material that you're given. And if you're made to be like the Road Warriors, then you're going to be seen like you're the Road Warriors. If you're going to be made to do barely...
That's what they were billed as that. They were billed as the next Road Warriors. They really were. They were billed that way, and people wanted them to work. And, if you're told to do that type of work and you're supposed to do that, then if people tell you, how many technical wrestlers can you actually have in a company? I hate to say that. Like, don't get me wrong. The business, when I loved the business, when I was growing up when I watched the business, wrestlers were larger than life. Mm-hmm. They really were. They were big guys. Hogan, Giant, Ultimate Warrior, all these guys that were all larger than life. And then you go to 2020 and most of the wrestlers looks like they worked at Subway. They had a job at Subway. So it's like, hey, may I take your order? And now I'm going to be wrestling on Raw in like 2 hours. So I'll be there. So that's basically the way I look at it.
I agree.
I just, I can't, if you walked into a building and there was 10 guys and 7 of them were wrestlers, and then you saw me and the Shane twins walk in, you would think, and if everybody looked, you would think we were the wrestlers and those guys were just the fans.
I agree.
And those guys were,
I don't want to feel like I could have a chance in a fight with anyone that's on my television when I watch wrestling. I want to feel like everyone that I'm watching can kick my ass. And sometimes when I watch it, I'm like, I think I could take that guy.
And don't get me wrong, Brock's big, Bray Wyatt's big.
Yeah.
Luke is a big guy.
Oh yeah.
I remember he's a big guy. There's a few big guys, but I feel that there's one person in this company that doesn't like to hire or bring in guys that are big because he doesn't want to look little. So I'm not going to name names, but you'll probably understand who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I know. I think.
So I guess we want to kind of scale further into towards the end of your wrestling career. I found it interesting that I believe it was 5th of January 2010, you win the SDW heavyweight title in a match with Adam Pearce, and also face him in a match for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. So I just wanted to see, at this stage of your career, you've left WWE, you're doing this stuff now with SDW. How are you feeling at this stage of your career?
To be honest with you, that was probably one of my last matches, if not my last match.
Yeah.
So I had a job opportunity at this gentleman's club in Tampa, but they told me, they're like, you know, we're cool with you being a wrestler, but you have to choose either wrestling or working for us. We run our business like a business. Like, if you want to be like work maybe one day a week and be part-time, that's totally fine. But if we want to work here, this is how it is. And I remember I got the opportunity to wrestle, you know, Adam, and you got to remember I started, and that's one of the people I didn't name when I talked about the old Steel Domain Wrestling. Adam was coming up in the business at the same time I did, and he was the man at Steel Domain when I first started, you know, wrestling, because he had been wrestling maybe a year or two before me. And I was thinking, okay, if I'm going to have a last match, who do I want it to be with? And when the promoter called me and he was like, Adam wants to wrestle you in Minneapolis. Do you want to do it? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to do it, because I don't know if I'm going to have another match, and I want this to be my last match. And Jerry Lynn was actually on the show too. So it was like my uncle was actually there. All my family were there, because I told a lot of them that I didn't think I was going to be wrestling anymore, and I was going to move on to, you know, other things in my life. So I didn't know if I was going to have another match, and I might have had one more in Florida.
St. Petersburg against Kennedy Kendrick on the 30th of July, 2010.
Yeah, I had one or two more after that, but it wasn't many.
Yeah.
And but it was, you know, at that time when I was thinking about the match, I was like, okay, I need to wind this down, because I wasn't old, but I also didn't want to be a person that was 50 years old and still trying to make ends meet in life. I never wanted to be that way. I never wanted to chase the wrestling dream. I loved wrestling. I still love wrestling. I love the pure form of wrestling. I love the fans. Love them and hate them. My job 99% of the time when I was in the wrestling business was for them to hate me. So, and a lot of them never got to, you know, experience this type of Justin, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's funny, people meet me, you know, in the wrestling business, are like, oh man, you're a nice guy. I'm like, man, you need to meet me in real life, because I'm not a nice guy. So, but yeah, that match was good, and I had a really good time in that match. I do remember it. I have a really good memory when it comes to things, like you probably can tell.
Yeah.
Adam was the NWA champion. I remember we had to do something so he wouldn't lose the title, but I could actually win the other title. So
yeah, that's cool, man.
It was a good match, and we had a fun time actually before the show and actually after the show talking. And it's cool that he's actually an agent there, and you know, when they brought him in as a trainer, I was fucking super excited for him. I'm very happy for him. He's a really, really good guy.
Well, I've heard that he's actually wrestling Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble.
Get the fuck out of here, really?
Yeah, is that right, Jack? Like, I don't watch it anymore, but I heard that there was a situation where he was thrust into a match, and all of a sudden he's now facing Roman Reigns for the WWE title at Royal Rumble.
Yeah, he is. The Universal title at the Rumble.
A Universal title, right.
Yeah, just so you know, I don't consider Roman Reigns one of the guys that work at Subway. Okay, he's in really good shape.
Yeah,
and Bray Wyatt's a big fucking dude. So, but needless to say, there's you know, trust me, I like the flips and all the whatnot, because I had a lot of really good matches with Evan Bourne. I could name off a lot of good guys that I had matches with. Evan Bourne, what's his name? Atlas DeBone, when he was in WWE, he was a character in 2008. He was a good guy. I liked him. We were kind of the same age, so we got along. It was just weird. Like when I was in OVW, there was so many young guys, and I was such an older guy. I was probably, 10 or 11 years older, because, there's Hawkins and Ryder. I'm like 10 years older than those guys.
Right.
So I remember, them just wanted to hang out and, play video games and stuff like that. And I was trying to figure out what bar I was going to go to pick up the next, hooker, no, not really. You know what I mean? But, yeah.
So this is being thrown over to you, Jack. We know that why you wanted to retire at the time now, but Jack, we've got a few more there for you.
Yeah, sure. We're just gonna pretty much go 2 more questions, and then we're gonna go into 5-second frenzy, the segment we like to end the show with. So of course, aside from wrestling, what have you actually been up to since retiring from wrestling? Because I know you mentioned earlier that you are working at a strip club, or still do work at a strip club. So what have you been up to?
That's the dream, right?
Well, I actually am a partner at that strip club in Tampa. I actually own part of it. I have owned part of it for going a little 7+ years now. I had the opportunity to buy in that time, and I couldn't pass it up. The money's too good in this business. And then I also got into medical marijuana. I actually have a center in Michigan.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So I am in that. I own part of DC United, the MLS soccer team.
Nice.
Really cool.
Yeah, man. So I got my hands in quite a few things right now. It's funny because I'll show you if I can change this.
Yeah, man.
You see my United shirt? I got this on my wall.
Hang on. Let me. There you go. Nice.
So I got that. Got that when I bought into the club. I actually I just had a baby about a year and a half ago. Another one. So I have an 18-year-old and a 20-month-old. So,
oh wow!
Wow,
Crazy, yeah.
I got remarried about 2 years ago. Little less than 2 years ago.
Oh,
awesome,
congratulations, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And last but not least, from me, of course, do you have any regrets? I mean, that can be a pretty broad question.
I don't have any regrets.
Nice.
Do I wish it would have went a little bit differently in the business? Yes. Am I, people ask all the time if I should go and do those, autograph signings and, those fan deals and whatnot. That's just never been me. I'm not really one to like be out there, because, guys will come to my club and be like, here's the encyclopedia. Can you sign this for me? And I'm always happy to do that. But I've never been one to like want to be out there. I don't want to like travel the circuit, being like a retired wrestler trying to get someone to buy my autograph. That's not me. I never have been like that. I'm not that way. So, to answer your question, no, I have no regrets. Do I wish that it would have went differently? Of course, I think everybody wishes it would have went differently because in the end, everybody gets everyone.
Yeah.
The only one going to get fired is Hunter, Stephanie, and Vince. Everybody else, Shane. Everybody else is going to get fired no matter what.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I always tell everybody when it comes to my business. I'm like, there's 4 of us, 5 of us. Everybody else is going to get fired eventually.
Yeah.
That's when you're the owner. So, but I have no regrets. Like I said, there's certain things that I do wish I would have done differently. But I feel like if I wouldn't have went to WWE, I wouldn't be in Florida and I wouldn't be where I am today in my life. I wouldn't have my baby. I wouldn't have my wife, and I wouldn't be in Florida. And I don't regret it at all.
That's awesome, man.
That's a great
really,
answer.
really, really fucking cool, man. We're just happy when people that have been in the business obviously have been disappointed by the experience. Well, I mean, I'm sure you have great memories as well, but disappointed by what ended up happening when you probably had this idea of what could be, and because the powers that be didn't know what the fuck they were doing, it's just great to hear that you're happy, you know, and that you've been able to move on from it and not worry about it after, you know, 10, nearly 11 years.
That's the only thing I can say. It never ends the way you want it to. No matter if you're freaking Hulk Hogan or myself, or some people can retire and drive off into the sunset, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't have the what's the word I'm looking for? The
fairy tale ending.
Fairy tale ending, yes, like the Brett Favre ending, or like any football player. Nobody wins the title and then retires, like Peyton Manning or one of those guys in the NFL, or nobody it's very rare. It's very rare that it happens, and it just doesn't. It doesn't really happen in the wrestling business. There's too many people that have that life, and they have that vision that how it's going to end, and it never ends that way. It just never does.
Exactly.
But I'm okay with how it ended. At the time, was I okay with it? I was like, holy fuck, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my life? Do I want a wrestler? Do I want to be a wrestler? Do I want to wrestle? I don't know. But then I realized, do I want to fucking try to, because at the time when I got released, I'd contacted TNA, and I remember talking to Terry Taylor, and Terry's like, yeah, I think we want to bring you in. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he goes, this is what we're going to do for you. We're going to do 30 appearances for $300 an appearance. And I was like, wait, what? 30 appearances for $300. He goes, but you can work indies. And at that time, if you guys remember, the indies weren't fucking good. They were terrible. Mm. So it's not like the indies now. I heard guys are actually making money on the indies. Yeah. Now, back then there was no money on the indies. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do maybe 2 appearances, every couple weeks or every month. Who knows what was going on with TNA. I'd do a couple appearances and then go from there, maybe make $600, and I got to travel. Yeah. Are you paying for my, it was like, nah, I don't think that's what I want to do. So that's when I had to, reevaluate my life. So that's when I figured that I'm to look at some boobies for the rest of my life and be happy.
Yeah. Well, that's a victory right there, my friend. Yeah. Very envious of that.
It's not as glamorous as you think.
Oh no, I can imagine it would probably be quite stressful, especially with drunk patrons. I know that can probably be.
Oh no! I don't. The patrons are least of my problems. It's usually the girls with daddy issues. They're the ones that are my problem.
Oh, I see. Okay, well,
we always talk about if we could kill one girl, we could kill one for a year. We should be able to get away with it, but they haven't passed that law yet in the United States.
Oh God. Fair point.
Well, bro, we're coming up to this final segment of the show. It's called 5 Second Frenzy. It's 10 quick fire questions. I think it's 10.
It's 10.
It is 10. It's just to learn about a couple of things that you like about wrestling, but mostly some things that you like outside of wrestling.
Okay.
And you have 5 seconds to answer each question. And once again, if you don't, beat the 5 seconds, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get in trouble.
Okay.
So here we go. Bam Neely, 5 Second Frenzy. Your favorite wrestler?
Oh, Bret Hart is my favorite wrestler. Yeah.
Excellent. Your favorite opponent?
Undertaker.
Nice. The favorite match you've ever had?
I had a match with Evan Bourne. It was in OVW. That was probably my favorite match.
Cool. Awesome. Your favorite TV show?
Wow. Law and Order.
Nice. Your favorite film?
Gladiator.
Nice. Your favorite musical artist?
Kill Switch Engage.
Oh, dude, I've seen them like 5 times. Love them.
Yeah, they're my.
Your favorite book?
Oh man, I got a couple. Man, I don't know.
That's cool.
Go another one.
Your favorite food?
Shoot, probably I would say pizza, but probably pasta. Pasta would probably be my favorite.
Very nice. Your favorite place to eat on the road?
Outback was my favorite place.
We get Outback a lot.
Yeah.
Your favorite alcoholic beverage?
When I was in WWE, rum and Coke. Now it's vodka and Sprite with a splash of cranberry. That's and then my other favorite drink is shots. Shots of Rumplemints are my favorite. Have you ever had Rumplemints?
No, I haven't. No.
Never.
Rumplemints is it's the devil. It is the devil. It's like 120 proof. It's freaking
holy shit.
Like liquid lightning.
Your favorite female body part?
I'm a boobs guy. I like boobs.
Well, you've found your career, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Your favorite curse word, which is the last question here on 5 Second Frenzy.
Fuck. Yeah. I say it a lot.
Sweet. Awesome, bro. Fuck is probably the number one answer for favorite curse word. But Bam Neely, I want to thank you so much for your time talking to us here today. You know what? When we first started this podcast in February last year, because of the pandemic and all that, we were bored. I remember thinking to myself, who is someone that I could get that I bet the guys don't think I'll be able to get? And your name was the name. I was like, if I can get Bam Neely, then the guys will believe in me that I can get anybody, because I couldn't find anything. No email address, no booking information, nothing on Twitter. I couldn't find anything. And I'm like, I will find a way to get this guy on the show. And thankfully, Mike Moran mentioned your name. And I'm like, oh, it just so happens that this is a massive bucket list one for me.
I don't have any media, no social media presence. I got off social about 4 years ago, and it was the best fucking decision I've ever made. There you go. There you go.
Very wise.
Yeah. I don't have Facebook anymore. I've only got Twitter for the podcast to promote it. That's it.
There's too much political BS on there, and I'm just over it. If you live in America right now, how much political mumbo jumbo there's going on right now, you would want to move to Australia. Trust me.
Oh man.
I try to stay out of it, because it's just it feels like it's a movie. It feels like this is not real life, and these are actors on television, because it just seems not like real life.
Man, this last 2020, when 2020 happened, I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad we're in 2021, because 2020 sucked.
Yep.
And like how you guys are when it comes to like the shutdowns and everything. But Florida, our governor is getting a lot of shit for being completely open. And he's just being ripped apart. But thank God for him, because if he wouldn't be open right now, my business would go under.
Oh, right, yeah.
I don't have a large scale business. We're a small business. We're small business owners. And I appreciate that he actually like fucking had some balls and was like, fuck this, we're going to stay open.
Yeah.
We're not killing anybody. We're not trying to kill anybody. It's just, I'm just happy that he did what he did.
Yeah. Cool, bro. Well, again, I want to thank you so much for being on the show here today. It was so interesting, and you're probably one of the most honest and open people we've had on the show, that just told us all these great backstage inside stories of what really went on, and really appreciate the fact that you're going to be so honest with us. And, you know, even if you feel disappointed by what happened in WWE, at least you know that in the most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia, there were guys over here that appreciated what you did.
No, man, it's all good. Like I said, I'll keep going back to it. I was disappointed in what happened. Like I said, they just didn't have direction then. I really wish, everybody always talks about if I would have been 10 years before, 10 years after, how my career would have probably went. I would have been a lot better. But I don't have any regrets. You know I can say that with my wholeheartedly. I don't have any regrets at all. I'm happy in my life. I have a great family. I have a great time. I still, Mike Moran, he's a great guy. Me and Mike, we used to have a lot of long talks about not really the wrestling business, just about life. Because people really don't understand. Like, I really didn't know Mike until I got to Florida. Like, I knew of him in the wrestling business, but I really didn't know him. And he became a really, really close friend of mine. We worked at the same business together for a little while at that club, and then we stopped. He actually moved on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
And then I stayed, and we've still, just because we don't talk doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of respect for him. He's a great guy. Lenny Lane the same. Like, Lenny taught me a lot in the business. I didn't mention Lenny enough in this interview, but Lenny Lane, he was such a great guy to me, taught me so much about the business in the early part of my career, how to put matches together. Because when you're young in the business, it's like, fuck, what do you do? How do you do this? And Lenny would always he would walk me through it and taught me. And he, one of my first 3 or 4 matches was with Lenny. He had a lot of trust in me, and he's like, hey, let's have a match together. And I was like, what? Really? Okay, cool. One of those things. So it was, I was with Lenny. He was really always there for me, and I really appreciate that. And it's so funny because he lives in Florida, and I haven't seen that guy ever. So crazy. We live probably 10 minutes away from each other, and we've never seen each other just because we live different lives, man. It's just how life goes once you get out of the wrestling business,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can catch up with him sometime soon.
Yeah, I will. I'm a very busy, I'm a busy person. I know he's a busy person. So it's just one of those things that it happens. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, bro, again, Bam, I just want to thank you so much for your time here today. And
No, man, guys,
we'll be in touch via email. And I know that one day I do plan to fly over there to Florida, and I definitely want to check out your establishment. I want to hang out with Mike. I want to hang out with all the boys in Florida.
All right.
Interview. We've had so many people from Florida, so it'll be so much fun to meet you in person one day.
One of those things, 2001 Odyssey is where all the wrestlers come to die.
Yeah.
All the wrestlers die. We all come there, and there's probably been 10 of them that have actually worked at that club. So it's really funny. So, but I appreciate it, guys, and I thank you for your time, man.
Thanks,
awesome.
Bro. Really appreciate time. And thank you to everyone out there for watching here. This interview with Bam Neely on the WZWA Network. I am California in Fury alongside Jack Wallace and Bam Neely, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you.